Hello and welcome back to TNN's coverage of the world's 9 best fantasy football players league. I'm your host, and this is what we have for you this week. Week 11 brought the end of interdivisional play for the year. The Crewmen took home the interdivisional crown this year with a dominant 23-13 record. Last week, the Crewmen got the upper hand going 5-1. With the only loss coming from Ham and Throw at the hands of Bonk. Bonk has been the top scorer in the league 3 weeks in a row and sent this message to TNN. Week 12 brings the trade deadline, but we've already seen a blockbuster trade between Team Big Chungus 22 and the Texarkana Bandits, swapping Justin Jefferson for DeAndre Swift. TNN reached out to both teams to see what their thought process was going into this trade.
All right, fellow World's 9 Best Fantasy Football Friends members, here's the deal. You know me, the media comes asking, I'm going to answer their questions. They want to know about the blockbuster that went down recently. And I tell you what, when it comes to Justin Jefferson, I was receiving some reports that he was a little unhappy being a Chungus, not being the best wide receiver on a team that's hella stacked at wide receiver, quite frankly. He was pretty kind of buried on that depth chart behind Tyreek and best wide receiver of all time, Mike Williams, and still elite Julio Jones, of course. So, understandably, he's no longer wanted to be a Chungus. And if you don't want to be a Chungus, we don't want to have you at Chungai HQ, okay? So it was time to just part ways. Both parties felt that way. And Grayson, he came knocking. He told me he wanted to move DeAndre Swift, and there was just no interest from the league for whatever reason. He was throwing the kitchen sink at some people. A name, Jamar Chase, came up in some trade talks, potentially, in a blockbuster with a different team, who I will not name, that might own Jamar Chase. So it just felt like a great fit for both teams. And, I'm happy having DeAndre. We got a great pick coming up in the future, and I hope for the Bandits that Jefferson is the one to finally break the curse for them. So, Big Chungus forever. Adios, y'all.
The Chungai came to me and they said, hey, we're never on TNN because we're the most disrespected team, and we just need to do something to get us on the show. And I said, you know what? I don't need a running back one. So I did the deal. That's it. End of story. Analytics? None. Thought process? None. 2023 first round? I don't even know if there's going to be a 2023. But what I do know is we're on the show. So mission accomplished.
And now, here's Danny Football with his picks for Week 12. Hey, what's up, guys? World's 9 best fantasy football players expert, Danny Football here, back with another week of expert predictions. Consider the curse officially broken for me. Went 5-1 last week, bringing my total on the year up to a very nice 42-24. I guess Tom also had a nice week, going 5-1, but as we all know, tie goes to the expert. It's a win for me. Curse officially broken. But now, we got a new week, new guest, and a new chance to beat the expert. So guest, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Hey everybody, Miguel Mello here, defensive coordinator of the historic franchise, undefeated, never lost. By the way, I've been noticing that everybody's been using the whole general manager of the adjective franchise, blah, blah, blah. That's our trope. You can't use that anymore. We have copyrighted it. Anyway, here to beat the expert. It's going to be quite a few good matchups this week. I'm going to try and give everybody a deep dive. It's probably a long episode, but, it's Thanksgiving, so hopefully everybody has a day off. And or the editing team has quite a bit of time to put things together, but yeah, let's get into it.
All right, first up, we have Ham and Throw, and Court is now in session. Court currently favored in this one at 84% chance to win. Miguel, who do you like here?
All right, I also gave every matchup or every game a title this week, kind of like a Colin Cowherd thing, I guess. I called this one the Take the Over game. This is a very historic matchup between these two guys. Two teams always perform. The 3 times that they have met, the scores have been 249 to 242, 229 to 193, 208 to 188. However, we got recent news that Hammond Throw is officially tanking this year, even though he says he's not. Trading away Mike Evans. But I mean, the offer he couldn't refuse that, so I don't blame him. But anyway, yeah, lots of playoff implications. McKissick would get a bye if he wins one of these weeks. Essentially, I think Court's obviously the team to beat, even though he's not first in the crewman division. He's been averaging more than 20 points per game, more than any of the other teams. It's been absolutely insane. However, Hammond Throw, like I said, even though they're tanking, something that he did mention is that I think he's scored in the top 3 for the past 5 weeks, which is pretty insane. However, Court and Sound Session just studs all the way down the roster. Even when Alera's on bye. I mean, I'm not even talking about the matchups for these guys because they're just completely matchup proof. It's absolutely insane. On defense, I mean, they kind of have some below average matchups for the linebackers. They're all facing teams that are in the bottom half and like rushing attempts in the NFL. Nick Bosa has a really tough game. Watt might not be back. We'll see. But at the end of the day, his IDPs are also matchup proof. Hammond Throw has been up and down in the offense, but it's been mostly up recently. Dalton Schultz could have a really big day. Solid guys other than that, but I guess he's going to have Rashad Bateman, so probably not that much. However, he has terrible matchups for the defense. His defensive linemen are going up against teams that are allowed least and third least sacks this year. Demario Davis, for some reason, is now a bum. He got 1 tackle last week when he was like one of the most reliable linebackers in the week. So it kind of comes down to the New England defensive back duo that he has, getting like 5 picks or something. As much as I'd love to take Hammond Throw, I kind of want to see some chaos. I don't think he's going to be able to manage to win this one. I think Court's probably going to win out and might take the number 1 seed.
Yeah, I like that pick. That's, this is a Hammond Throw team that's very much on the brink right now. They basically need to win out and get some help if they want to have any chance at making the playoffs. That could make them a dangerous team, but the key word there is could make them a dangerous team. Eckler had massive game for them last week, and the team as a whole put up over 200 points, but as we all know, fans of the show know, Hammond Throw, they just, for whatever reason, they can't sustain that high-scoring performance. Court also looked pretty good last week. Broke a little bit of a slide, getting a nice win over To Infinity and Beyond. If they get TJ Watt back in time for this week, I think they're going to be really tough to stop. This matchup, as you noted, Miguel, has produced some very high-scoring performances in the past. Rivalry game, some bad blood between these two teams. Both are going to want to show up. Things could get interesting here. But I'm expecting the Court to sentence Hammond Throw to another year of missing the playoffs. I'm going with the Court.
These puns are gross. They're so bad. Speaking of puns, the Hammond Throw team has has the only title that has stood the test of time.
Yeah.
And I still don't get what it's a reference to. Is this a reference to anything? Is this a cultural thing that I don't get?
It was his Xbox gamer tag. It was Ham and Bro.
Wow, okay.
Because Visconti's like childhood nickname was Ham or something. I don't know. Cut to a clip of Visconti explaining
it. No kidding, the team sucks. Jeez.
Next up, we have Team M. Vanek versus Team Big Chungus 22. Big Chungus favored at a 78% chance to win in this one. These are two teams that, as an expert, I do not have a lot of love for. I respect the move for the Chunguses to go out and get DeAndre Swift. Big move, big swing for the fences. And it was pretty well timed with Michael Carter going down for the next couple weeks with the injury. The team that's likely to benefit from Michael Carter being out, though, is actually Team M. Vanek, who has been starting Ty Johnson in their starting lineup for no good reason over the past few weeks, but now they will actually have a reason to start him. Team M Vanek, they're going to be hoping for a nice bounce back game from Dak on Thanksgiving after that absolutely abysmal 0.64 point showing from him last week. Caused him to lose. Literally, if Dak had anything going in that game, Team M Vanek would have won last week. And because of that, Team M Vanek cost me the first ever 6-0 week on picks. I went 5-1. That was the only one I got wrong.
Can I add? I would have gotten a 6-0 last year had Jacob not taken on Visconti's challenge to start 2-0 over Tom Brady. So
He got baited. But anyway, I'm very low on this M Vanek team, as I have been all year. Picking against Team M Vanek usually does not go well, but they have made me very mad by costing me that 6-0 week. It's been ever elusive. I'm still chasing it. I need to be the first one to get the 6-0 week. Team M Vanek cost me that. For that reason, I'm going with Team Big Chungus 22 here.
Yeah, the title I have for this game is the no-name game. Obviously, two teams that still haven't, they're so far behind, they haven't even gotten team names. But also, like, they're two teams with, like, zero storylines this year. Like, no one cares about them, really. They're terrible teams that are somehow both in the playoff conversation. Somehow Team M Vanek has fewer points than everybody in the crewman division. And had he had another half point each of the past 2 weeks, he would be leading the imposters division right now, which is just insane. You try and feel bad for him losing by so little, but I mean, come on.
I don't feel bad. I do not feel bad at all.
Yeah, it's just wrong. I'm not even joking. Last night I was trying to look at these matchups, write some notes, and I chose to go to bed instead. This is the only one I left for today because I genuinely I thought sleeping was a better thing, and those who know how late I go to sleep will know that I'll probably do anything before I go to sleep. Anyway, yeah, I mean, his flex options are just awful. His offense is terrible. To be fair, he does have James Conner and DeAndre Hopkins on bye, but for his flex, it looks like he's looking between Jamison Crowder, Tyler Johnson, who I guess, it might be the starting running back for the Jets, which is already gross, but he's also probably going to split carries with Coleman, Tyler Higbee, and Kenyon Drake, which are all just terrible. And that's assuming that he starts Valdez-Scantling as his wide receiver, too. So his defense also has some pretty bad matchups. His Tampa Bay defensive lineman duo has been pretty unimpressive as of late. And they're going up against the Colts, one of the best offensive lines in football. Landry's also going against New England, so he's probably not going to get that many sacks. I think he might have a chance if he has the balls to sit both those guys and start Jayon Brown and Sam Hubbard instead, but I don't even know if he cares that much. He hasn't even changed his team name yet. On the other hand, Team Big Chungus 22, he made a good trade, and he's looking okay this week, so I'm going with the Chunguses.
All right, moving on, we have Blinded by the Tight End versus McKiss My Balls.
No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I said I'd give everybody a deep dive. Well, I'm here for you. Well, I'm going to give you the time that you don't really deserve, but I'm trying to spread the wealth here.
It's fine. I don't love talking about the Chunguses. There's not much to say.
It's pretty bad. I didn't want to talk about them that much, but especially, I guess I'll talk about the trade. The trade, I think, was a really good move for Will. I think for this year it was a little bit of a lateral move, but it sets up his future really well. Getting that first round pick from a team that I still don't think is going to be that good next year. He's kind of struggling at flex this week with Tyreek on bye and Michael Carter out. But Michael Gallup could be pretty good with the Cowboys receivers out. I think he also has to have the courage to not start Odell somehow because he's been awful. He has to start someone like Robbie Anderson, maybe. Jeez, man, these offenses are so bad. And his defenses also have some bad matchups. his linebackers going up against some teams that don't run the ball. He has by far the worst defensive line in the league. It's like really, really, really bad. He's starting Javon Hargrave, who hasn't had a sack since week 5, and some dude from the Jets who I've never heard of. And I do a lot of research into defensive linemen, and I've never heard of this guy. He's been splitting snaps for the Jets, and he scored 1 point 3 out of the last 5 weeks, and somehow he's still in this lineup.
I look at these teams every week, and I don't even know who that guy is.
Will, dude, reach out to me. I have some defensive linemen. I can give you a good price. You can call them whoever's daddy you want to call him, even though you'll be wrong. But either way, like I said, I mean, these teams are just bad. But I think Team Mvanic's probably gonna have the second lowest score this week. So I'm taking Big Chungus 22.
All right, moving on, we have Blinded by the Tight End versus McKiss Maballs. McKiss favored 56%, pretty close one. What are your thoughts here?
The title for this matchup is the second luckiest team in the league versus the second unluckiest team in the league. The title for the luckiest goes to Team Mvanic, of course, Team Mvanic, and the unluckiest, I believe, is Jacob. Tom still has a chance to play spoiler. To me, he started out the year as the favorites to win the championship. But he can still make the playoffs, so he might as well go for it. McKiss could be fighting for a bye still, and if he wins the next 2 weeks, he doesn't even have to beat Court is now in session the last week, so pretty big matchup for both teams. I'm not going into the offensive matchups, because if you're going to the sleeper app, it's just like green all the way down, so it doesn't really matter. McKiss just has like a much better offense than Blinded by the Tight End as well, with just the pure talent, especially with like Ridley out. So it's advantaged by McKiss by like 20 points just on offense. But defensive coordinator, big IDP guy. I think Tom's IDPs might actually be able to make up for that though. He has Kendricks going up against run heavy San Francisco. Hedrick, not Hedrick, but it's Hedrick. Going up against Miami. He has Quinnen Williams. He has to not start Quinnen Williams and start Anthony Walker going up against Baltimore. But for McKiss, IDPs aren't that good. He's starting Kenneth Murray, who is that's just not a good sign. Both of his DBs are going up against rush heavy offenses. Overall, it looks like an easy matchup for McKiss. He's on a 9-win streak and he's going up against a team that's average 157 points over the last 5 weeks. So it looks pretty easy, but I think it's going to be a lot closer than it seems. I don't think Tom's going to be able to make up for it though with the IDP matchup, so I'm still going for McKiss balls.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think this is one that's going to be a lot closer than people think. McKiss seems like pretty clear, easy pick here, but I'm not too sure about that. Blinded by the Tight Ends, they escaped by the skin of their teeth last week against Team Mvanic, and that win, I think, is probably going to solidify their spot in the playoffs, barring some absolute catastrophe for them. They won't really have too much to play for here, aside from playing spoiler to McKiss. They might have the new Derrick Henry on their hands with Jonathan Taylor, which I know might be a sore spot, bringing up Derrick Henry in the matchup with Tom's team. But Jonathan Taylor has looked very good recently, like clear top running back fantasy-wise. The man's been an absolute beast lately. We'll just put it that way. But he does have a tough matchup with Tampa Bay, notoriously tough against the run. With the real Derrick Henry on Blinded by the Tight End being out until at least January, I think it's going to be tough for them to put anything together down the stretch, putting their miracle win against Team Mvanic last week aside. They're probably going to be in the playoffs, though. It's a team I've been eyeing this week to see if they want to make a move, add a piece. I think if they want to make a run in the playoffs, they're probably going to need to add somebody, because they've just been absolutely decimated with the injuries to a lot of their top players. At the end of the day, though, McKiss has got some top-tier running backs. and I'm expecting them to ride those guys to a win in this one. Next up, we have the Pumper McNichols taking on Undefeated Never Lost. Pumper McNichols favored at a 66% chance to win. Pumper McNichols have a nice little 2-game win streak going after ending their losing streak. And they could sneaky be in the race for a playoff spot. Undefeated Never Lost, on the other hand, has a nice little 3-game win streak, and they could also sneaky be in the race for a playoff spot. These are two teams that are currently 6 and 7 in the power rankings, with teams going against every other team every week, right around 500 for both of them. I think this matchup is essentially going to be a playoff eliminator. Whoever loses, likely done. So there's a lot at stake in this matchup. I think a lot of people have actually been pretty unfairly down on Undefeated Never Lost this year. And they did, in fact, go 4-2 in interdivisional play. So Miguel, I'd like to give you the shout out there. With a little grain of salt, you did originally say 5-1, but we will.
Had I had Brendan
Cooks,
I would have gone 5-1.
You know, is Undefeated Never Lost going to win the championship? No, but it does show the turnaround that a team can have after only 1 year. They were down pretty bad last year, and they're still not in great position, but things are definitely looking up for them. Elijah Moore looking really nice. Their combo of Joey Bosa and Myles Garrett, elite D-line there. Najee has been an instant hit and a great use of their first overall pick. But you know, I'm being really way too nice to Undefeated Never Lost here. Really, this team can't compete in the crewman division, and they've shown that. And I'm going with the Pumper McNichols for literally no good reason, but come on.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to argue against that just because Pumper McNichols have shown up this year against us. But, you know, the title for the matchup for me is the matchup that's been brewing for over a year. You know, with the trade, with the pick swap that happened in October 2020. You know, we did play week 1, but, you know, week 1, lots of things happened over the year, so we're not really sure how things were going to go. But right now, you know, this is a matchup in which if we beat Pumper McNichols, they're probably not going to make the playoffs, and the pick that we got is probably not going to be that bad. If we lose, the Pumper McNichols have a decent chance of making the playoffs, depending on how our other teams do. So it's a pretty big matchup. And like the expert analyst said, Undefeated Never Lost still has a chance to make the playoffs. So it's a pretty big matchup for Pumper McNichols to win to protect their pick as well. I'd say that we're pretty evenly matched at wide receiver and running back. Undefeated Never Lost has a disadvantage at QB and flex. Our QB play has been pretty uneven, to say the least, and our flex has been, I mean, let's just say that offensive coordinator Danny Stortz has had a tough few past 5 seasons. Yeah, exactly. I mean, with the losses of a few criminals who deserve to go to jail for the next 40 years, and a few injuries here or there. He's had his hands full, but things have been working out. So, you know, at the end of the day, he also has some buys on offense that are probably going to hurt him quite a bit, especially Travis Kelce. We both have great matchups on our defenses. Garrett and Bosa are going up against Baltimore and Denver, allowed 2nd and 4th most sacks this season. Undefeated Never Lost linebackers are going up against run-heavy teams. Defensive backs going up against teams that air it out a lot. The Pumper McNichols has some great matchups too, especially with Matt Judon, I think, going up against Tennessee, and Devin White, obviously also the same matchup as Lavonte David. But the other ones are pretty average, and he has a few buys that might hurt him with Chris Jones and Jordan Hicks, and he doesn't have that much depth to replace them, in my opinion. So obviously, I have to do this. I'm going to go with Undefeated Never Lost in this big matchup.
All right. I respect it.
Is this the first one we're going different ways?
I think so.
I think right, obviously, yeah. Of course, you're gonna ask me to come in a week. You're not gonna ask me to do my picks when I'm going up against Grayson or Brett, right?
No.
I'm surprised you didn't. Surprised you didn't do it when I was playing you. Okay, but Danny or obviously the manager for whatever team. Corton is now in session. Obviously, you don't have a.
Yeah,
You don't have a,
I was gonna say, of course, I don't have a team.
You don't have a team.
So. Next up, we have the Mental Brick Walls taking on the Texarkana Bandits. Brick Walls favored at 82% in this one. Miguel, what are your thoughts on this matchup?
All right. Title for this matchup is the battle of the two worst backfields in the league. Patterson is coming back, so it's not that bad anymore, but it's still really, really bad. Really bad. I think the Jefferson trade, like I said, was a big loss for Grayson. It was a big win for Will. Jefferson has scored 3 more points than Swift this year through 11 weeks, and the running back position is so much more shallow than the wide receiver position. I know he's going for the long run, but if you're only going to have, you're only going to be able to pick up a decent running back in the first round of rookie drafts, unless you're Jacob, so he won't be able to have 2 reliable running backs unless all of his handcuffs work out until 2024, 2025. So I don't even know. By then, some of these guys might have retired. Grayson has Juju and Shepard, which he's either going to have to trade for some low-end running back 3s or something, or he's just going to have to keep on his bench since he has so many wide receivers. And at least for this week, it's looking even worse for the Bandits. A.J. Brown might be out. CD plays on Thursday. It's questionable to play. Kyler Murray and Simmons are on bye, which is pretty tough. His linebackers and other IDPs are pretty weak in terms of players in and matchups. So it's never a good sign when you're starting a guy who's averaged 17 snaps over the past 2 weeks. It's just gross. This team's really bad, and I'm really glad I have their first round pick next year, let's just say. Overall, the team's just really bad other than wide receiver, which they're not even going to be at full strength. On the other hand, the Brick Walls, I think they have a wide receiver core that's almost as good as the Bandits. They have Diggs, McLaurin, Renfro, who's going to be taking so many targets. He has Claypool as well. Pretty good matchups for the Brick Walls IDPs. All 3 defensive linemen go up against teams top 3 for sacks allowed. Malcolm is going up against a pretty fast-paced offense that throws a lot in Buffalo. Malcolm Jenkins, I believe that means. So I'm going with the Brick Walls only because I think Grayson and the Bandits are the team that are going to have the lowest score this week. I'm predicting a sub 140 week for the Bandits, and the Brick Walls take this in a pretty ugly matchup, giving me the first pick overall next year, at least for the time being.
Yeah, this is, like you said, very, very ugly matchup. There's not a lot to like here. We have a 9-game losing streak going up against a 5-game losing streak. So something's got to give there. I guess that's good news for these teams. Really not good news for the viewers at home, though. I'm expecting the ratings to be very low on this game. Not a lot of eyes. These two teams, that they're not statistically eliminated from the playoffs yet, but they would need a lot of help. Like a lot of help, and points for would probably do them in at the end of the day anyway. This is basically a meaningless matchup. Look, fans of the show will know that I'm high on the Bandits. Even with their 9-game losing streak, I have not jumped off the Bandits bandwagon, and I'm not looking to jump off anytime soon. I actually respect their move to go out and get Justin Jefferson. I think it is a terrible move for the immediate future, but he's likely going to be a staple of this team for the foreseeable future. And Will proved with getting Michael Carter at the start of the second round, there is still some running back value you can get there, even if you don't have the first round picks. It's definitely not a sure thing. You're not going to be getting Najee Harris, but you can still get a little value there. So I think there is some way out for the Bandits there. They're just going to have to hope that they land a solid running back or 2 in the draft. Mental Brick Walls are one of my teams to watch this week with the trade deadline coming up. They have a couple nice pieces on their roster that it might make sense to trade for picks. that some delusional team like the Pumper McNichols or Hammond Throw might pick up in some last-ditch playoff push because they think they're going to get in and win it. I don't know. No team that I know is going to want anybody on the mental brick walls, but I'm sure someone out there will want some of their picks. Stephon Diggs, very very fine, very solid piece. When it comes down to it, though, the Bandits' running back situation is atrocious. Like, it is. I thought that the brick walls running back situation was bad when they were running the Falcons' backfield out there, but the Bandits' best running back right now is Tony Pollard, and it is going to be extremely hard for them to win any game right now. I am very reluctantly picking the brick walls in this one. Finally, we have our marquee matchup of the week, To Infinity and Beyond versus Bonk Go to Mahorny Jail. Bonk favored at a 73% chance in this one. This is a pretty high-powered matchup here in the Imposters division. Bonk has been absolutely on fire lately. They've risen to a very clear number 2 in the power rankings, just behind the court, top of the Imposters division, passing up McKiss this past week. To Infinity, on the other hand, they've been on a 3-game skid, but they're still in position to make the playoffs if a couple things shake out their way. Just need a win or 2 down the stretch here. I'm very intrigued to see if To Infinity and Beyond are buyers or sellers this week. I know that team owner Jacob had been shopping around some pieces in the past, possibly implying he's not too high on his team. Could be interesting to see how things shake out over the next couple days. Their max point 4 is actually pretty high, though, so if they do miss the playoffs, it's very likely that they will just be looking at the number 6 overall pick. So something to weigh there on playoff considerations or not. Bonk, on the other hand, they've been top scoring team in the league 3 weeks in a row now. They are unquestionably on fire. Sleeper shows that they're on fire. But really, will they have peaked too early? I see no reason why this team wouldn't make the playoffs. The Imposters division, pretty bad. I think they should have a very clear path claiming the division championship. And really, we'll see if they can keep the momentum going until then. You wanna peak at the right time, and it's possible that they got hot too early. They might burn out come playoff time. Something to note here: the Chiefs are on the bye. Bonk's not going to have Patty Mahomes, but I still think Bonk is going to be able to prevail and come out on top in this one.
Yeah, I mean, the title I have for this game is The Good, The Bad, and The Ugly. The good being me for coming up with such a great name. The bad being Jacob for, like I said, having a really bad season considering his roster. Like I said, I think unluckiest team in the league. And the ugly being Joe, because even though I've had to root for him this year for a few reasons, I still hate his team and everything it stands for. So, yeah, to me, I even wrote down, this is my marquee matchup of the week. I wrote this down even before I knew what the editing team was gonna put out there, what the producers were gonna consider the matchup of the week. Jacob has a playoff caliber team that hasn't delivered, and is actually the last team in the playoffs right now, even though I think he has a 5-6 record. So he's still in there. Bonk is fighting for that playoff bye. He has 2 easier matchups after this week, so this could essentially all guarantee an Imposters division win. There's a lot riding on injuries. Kareem Hunt could be coming back for Bonk, who has kind of a shallow backfield outside of Joe Mixon. Kamara plays Thanksgiving, hasn't practiced either yesterday or today, but I mean, you never know, he might be coming back. Cooper obviously out because he's unvaccinated, and Antonio Brown might be out because he's also... No, I've heard he's actually vaccinated. Very legit vaccinated.
He allegedly looking to get a fake vax card.
Sure. I mean, Jacob, reach out to me. We're very interested in having that kind of leadership in our team.
Only if he gets charged with something. Though. That's the only way I'm going to lost.
Only if he gets charged with fraud. I guess it would be. What's the technical term?
Yeah, some kind of fraud.
Some kind of fraud, absolutely. Yeah, like I said, Jacob and Tom probably have the teams that have been most affected by injuries this season, more so than the Court. To be fair, Court has some bad injuries, but they've been able to cover up for it because it's just such a good team. But when you have a team that has Aaron Jones, Alvin Kamara, Daryl Henderson, used to have Cam Akers, you have Antonio Gibson and Elijah Mitchell just at running back, and you're having to start Jeff Wilson. It's pretty bad. It's got
you've had a tough year.
Yeah, you've had a tough year, especially going into the playoffs. But I mean, many of these guys could be coming back for the playoffs, so he still has, a reason to try and win these last few matchups and not be a seller, in my opinion. This defense has put up pretty good points, but has some average to below average matchups, other than Tate Crowder going up against Philly, who's been running the ball I think they ran the ball 50 times last week or something like that. And but to be fair, he's still starting a defensive back at IDP flex, which I just think you never want to see that. Jacob, also, if you want another cheap linebacker, just reach out to me. Still trying to make some trades while I can. So, on the other hand, Bonk, obviously it's been really hot, has a great overall team. Even I hate to say that, but they do. Their IDPs usually are a bit of a hit or a miss, other than Parsons. They have some pretty bad matchups, especially for their defensive backs. But Hayward and Van Noy are actually going up against two teams that allow quite a few sacks, so it might be pretty good. But I think his offense just more than makes up for it, especially if Kareem Hunt's back. They have a good floor and a few players that have chances to have really big weeks, like Cooper Kupp, or either his tight ends. So I'm going to have to agree with you. Unfortunately, I'm going to have to go with Bonk, but Jacob, I really want you to pull through this week for various reasons. I want you to keep Timmy out of the playoffs. I want you to beat this team who's been doing bad by me all year. And I also want you to take a cheap linebacker from me for Alvin Kamara.
Seems like a fair trade.
I mean, some of the free trades that have been going on, I feel like that'd be more than fair. I'll throw in a second rounder or something.
All right, well, Miguel, thank you so much for being on the show this week. Wishing you all the best of luck with your picks. Of course, not as good as me, can't beat the expert, but again, thank you for being on, and maybe we'll be able to have you back on the show.
Yeah, we'll see. It sounds like it comes down to undefeated, never lost.
It does. It's a big matchup.
Big matchup. It sounds like there might be a hype video next week. That's all I'm going to say. All right. Thank you, Danny Football. Worst of luck to you. You were fraud. The fact they haven't been able to go 6-0 yet, and you've been on the show every week, on average, more than once a week, considering you're on the show with yourself once. Just absolutely terrible. Absolutely terrible.
Hey man, statistically,
no,
I haven't reached the point where it should have happened yet.
Okay, we're getting close. So statistically, I believe we reached a point where one of either the expert or a guest should have gone 6-0 by now. I'm sure Sleeper has gone 6-0 by now, which is just unfortunate. We all complain about Sleeper projections, but the expert Danny Football has been really quiet on how he does against Sleeper. He's been talking big about how he goes against people like Will, Javon Hargrave at defensive lineman. Hasn't really been talking about how he goes up against Sleeper, so I'd love to see that. But worst of luck to you, Danny Football, but it's awesome to be in the show. I'm sure I'll be back soon enough.
And thank you, Danny Football and guest Miguel, for those great picks. That is all we have for you this time. Be sure to come back next week to see how things shook out. I'm your host, and this has been TNN.